Well, Math 2 students, you are certainly working your way through your Unit 4. Now, what I'm doing now is writing a formula that you should have used before in order to find your variance and standard deviation. Because on this next task, it's going to be rather important that you use it, understand it, and know it. So in this next task or next assignment, you're expected to give um, about 6 values that give you certain standard deviations. Like for instance, I believe the first one was provide 6 values that have a standard deviation of 0. Well, you kind of need to understand what standard deviation is, and I'm sorry I didn't put the squared. All right, anyway, so let's say we wanted to get a standard deviation of 5. Hopefully that's not, no, I'm going to stick with 0. I'm going to stick with 0. Anyway, so if the standard deviation needed to be 0, what does the variance have to be? And I apologize about. So your variance has to equal 0. Now that means that this had to equal 0. And of course we already know that the n is 6. So that means when we took each number, the xi, these are your numbers, and the x bar, your mean, when you took those and subtracted and then eventually squared each subtraction, you had to get a total of 0. So that means sometimes when you subtract it and then square it, you had to get negatives and positives, or every time you subtract it and square it, remember you wanted to get 0 over 6 so that you get a variance of 0 and a standard deviation of 0. So the second or says when you subtracted and squared every time, you got 0. So when you talk about what you subtracted, remember the x with the sub I. We say sub I because it's that lower I. The x sub I minus your x bar had to be 0. That's like saying 10 minus 10 has to be 0. So remember, as you work through this task, you're using 6 numbers. And if every time you subtracted, you had to get 0, then that means that your numbers are boop. This video has come to an end. As always, if you have questions, please be sure to ask your online teacher.